Alright, buckle up folks. We're diving deep into the psyche of Yukishiro Tomoe from Rurouni Kenshin, The Beginning. This is the fourth and final part of my Rurouni Kenshin analysis series. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking around. Without further ado, let's get this started. If you haven't seen the movie yet, well, that's on you. Spoilers ahead. Tomoe strolls into the narrative like a whisper in a hurricane. She's the fiancée of Kiyosato Akira, a dude who had the misfortune of crossing paths with Kenshin's blade. After Kiyosato's untimely demise, Tomoe's got a vendetta brewing. She teams up with the Yamanobu, a shady group with their own anti-Kenshin agenda. Her mission? Get close to Kenshin, find his weakness, and serve up some cold revenge. Tomoe's plan is simple: infiltrate Kenshin's life. She plays the damsel in distress, and Kenshin, ever the sucker for a sob story, takes her under his wing. They shack up in a remote village posing as husband and wife. But here's the twist. Tomoe starts catching feelings. She sees the man behind the assassin, the guy who's just trying to navigate the chaos of the Bakumatsu era. Tomoe's journey is a wild ride. She starts off fueled by vengeance but ends up in a moral quagmire. Her growing affection for Kenshin clashes with her original mission. It's like watching someone try to juggle flaming swords, dangerous and bound to end badly. In the end, Tomoe's double life catches up with her. She tries to protect Kenshin from the Yamanobu's trap but ends up in the crossfire, literally. Kenshin, in a tragic twist, delivers the fatal blow that kills her, adding the second scar to his iconic cross-shaped mark. It's a gut punch that leaves both Kenshin and the audience reeling. Tomoe's death isn't just a plot point, it's the catalyst for Kenshin's transformation. Her influence turns him from a cold-blooded killer into a man seeking redemption. She's the ghost that haunts his journey, the reason he vows never to kill again. Let's not kid ourselves. Analyzing Yukishiro Tomoe isn't like reading the back of a cereal box. She's layered, she's mysterious, and honestly, she's the kind of character that makes you question if you're emotionally prepared to handle fictional people. But hey, here we are, diving into the psyche of this tragic figure from Rurouni Kenshin, The Beginning. I'll try to keep the positive energy flowing, but let's be real, this might get depressing.
刀のあるなしで切り殺していい人と悪い人ですか?
Tomoe is the human embodiment of a haunting melody, calm, deliberate, and utterly captivating. Her demeanor throughout the film screams composed, but not in a got it all together kind of way. It's more like she's a duck gliding on water while paddling furiously beneath the surface. She's always calm, even in situations where most of us would lose our lunch. Why? Well, her behavior is a mix of trauma, duty, and this low-key nihilistic streak that makes her endlessly fascinating. Her stoicism isn't just a personality trait, it's a defense mechanism. Remember, this is a woman who is suffering from the brutal murder of her fiancé Kiyosato Akira at the hands of Himura Kenshin. Yet, she doesn't lash out in rage or crumble into tears. Instead, she turns her grief into a slow-burning revenge plan. That takes some next-level self-control, but it also hints at her deep well of emotional suppression. What's striking is how Tomoe manages to keep her behavior so subdued even while her life spirals into chaos. She's like that one friend who stays eerily calm during a group project deadline, but instead of turning in a paper, she's plotting revenge against an unkillable assassin. Casual. Now, let's talk about Tomoe's choices, which are, for lack of a better word, bonkers. Who decides to infiltrate the life of a man who could literally kill you in his sleep? Tomoe, that's who. Initially, it's easy to think she's just a woman scorned, but there's more to it. Her decision to get close to Kenshin isn't just about vengeance, it's about understanding. She wants to see the face of the man who stole everything from her and, maybe on some level, to prove to herself that even monsters can bleed. Her decision to stay with Kenshin even as she begins to fall for him is where things get really complicated. By then, she's fully aware of his humanity. The guy isn't just a mindless killer, he's a dude carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Her choice to remain by his side despite her initial intentions is equal parts love, guilt, and the hope that maybe she can save him or herself in the process. But let's not ignore her ultimate act of sacrifice. In the film's climax, Tomoe chooses to protect Kenshin even though it means betraying the Yamanobu and risking her own life. This decision is the emotional crux of her character. She starts as a vengeful spirit and ends as a tragic figure. It's as if she realized that her vengeance wouldn't bring her peace, but saving Kenshin might give her life meaning. Heavy stuff, right?
平和のための戦いというものなどが本当にあるのでしょうか。
Tomoe's relationships are a masterclass in tragic irony. First, there's her dead fiancé Kiyosato. Their love story is the kind of wholesome, happily ever after romance that feels almost too pure for a tale like this. Kiyosato's death isn't just a plot device. It's the catalyst for Tomoe's descent into moral ambiguity. Her grief over his death is palpable, but what's fascinating is how it transforms over time. She doesn't just mourn Kiyosato. She uses his memory as fuel for her mission. It's both noble and heartbreaking. And then there's Kenshin. Oh boy, this relationship is the emotional train wreck we can't look away from. Tomoe starts off seeing Kenshin as a monster, but as she spends time with him, her perspective shifts. She sees his vulnerability, his remorse, and his humanity. What's wild is how their relationship evolves from a facade of domestic bliss into something raw and genuine. Their love isn't the butterflies and rainbows kind, it's the I see your brokenness and I love you anyway kind. Real talk, if that doesn't hit you in the feels, you're probably a robot. But let's not forget her role in the Yamanobu scheme. Her relationship with this shadowy group is a testament to her inner conflict. She's working with them to bring down Kenshin, but you can tell she's never fully on board. It's like she's caught in a web of her own making, torn between her duty to the dead and her growing attachment to the living. This duality makes her relationships with everyone, alive or dead, infinitely more layered. Tomoe's character arc is the stuff of Greek tragedies. She starts as a woman consumed by vengeance, but over the course of the film, she undergoes a profound transformation. What makes her development so compelling is how subtle it is. There's no dramatic monologue or sudden epiphany. Instead, it's a slow, almost imperceptible shift as she navigates her conflicting emotions. One of the most thought-provoking aspects of her development is how she redefines strength. At first, her strength comes from her resolve to avenge her fiancé, but by the end, her strength is found in her ability to forgive not just Kenshin, but herself. Her ultimate act of sacrifice isn't just about saving Kenshin, it's about redeeming her own soul. She's a character who learns that love and forgiveness are far more powerful than hatred and revenge. Cue the existential crisis.
幸せというものがどういうものなのか、俺は何も分かってなかった。
Alright, let's get all philosophical for a second. Tomoe's story can be analyzed through the lens of existentialism. Her journey is all about finding meaning in a world that seems determined to break her. At first, she clings to revenge as her reason for living, but as the story progresses, she realizes that vengeance is hollow. Her love for Kenshin becomes her new purpose, even though she knows it's doomed to end in tragedy. It's a classic case of existential freedom, choosing to find meaning in the chaos even if it's fleeting. From a psychological perspective, Tomoe's behavior can be understood through the concept of cognitive dissonance. She's constantly at odds with herself, torn between her desire for revenge and her love for Kenshin. This internal conflict drives her actions and ultimately leads to her tragic end. Her story is a reminder that humans are messy, contradictory creatures, and that's what makes us so fascinating. So why should we care about Yukishiro Tomoe? Because she's the unsung hero of the Rurouni Kenshin story. Her story is a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and sacrifice. She's not just a tragic figure, she's the moral compass that guides Kenshin toward redemption. Without Tomoe, there's no wandering swordsman, no vow to protect the weak, and no iconic cross-shaped scar. Tomoe's significance extends beyond the narrative. She's a reflection of the human condition, flawed, complex, and endlessly compelling. Her choices and relationships remind us that life is messy, love is complicated, and sometimes the only way to find peace is to let go of the past. Alright bros, let's talk about something heavy. How a single movie character can gut punch your psyche and leave you questioning why you're sitting on your couch drowning in Dorito crumbs. Her story didn't just tug at my heartstrings, it yanked them out, strummed a tragic ballad, and left me in an emotional stupor. Let's address the elephant in the room. Why does Tomoe's story hit so hard? Objectively speaking, her arc is the emotional equivalent of being smacked upside the head with a brick wrapped in angst. Her quiet grief, unrelenting duty, and ultimate sacrifice create a perfect storm of emotional devastation. For me, it was less like watching a story unfold and more like experiencing a slow, calculated dismantling of my soul. And I paid for this experience. But here's the thing. Tomoe's tragedy feels so personal because it's rooted in universal themes: loss, regret, and the desperate need to find meaning in suffering. Her story taps into that primal fear we all have, losing something or someone that defines us. When we watch Tomoe wrestle with her grief and make impossible choices, it's like staring into a mirror that reflects our own vulnerabilities. And yeah, I'm not crying, you're crying. Let's not forget what this does to Kenshin. Tomoe's death doesn't just leave him with a literal scar, it leaves him with an emotional one that shapes his entire life. Kenshin carries the weight of her death like a chain around his neck, and it informs every decision he makes moving forward. You can see it in how he vows never to kill again, how he becomes a wandering swordsman, and how he tries and often fails to reconcile his bloody past with his new ideals. Kenshin's trauma is an excellent example of survivor's guilt. He's haunted by the fact that his actions, direct or indirect, led to Tomoe's demise. It's the kind of guilt that doesn't go away no matter how many good deeds you do or how many enemies you defeat. Watching him struggle with this burden is both heartbreaking and cathartic because, let's be real, who hasn't felt like they're carrying the weight of their past mistakes? And then there's that scar. It's more than just a badass aesthetic. It's a visual representation of Kenshin's psychological wound. Every time we see it, we're reminded of the cost of his transformation. It's like the universe wanted to make sure he'd never forget, and neither would we.
だが新時代が来たらその時は
剣を捨てるか。
Okay, let's talk about how this messes with us. Watching Tomoe's story unfold feels like a psychological ambush. At first, she comes across as this reserved, enigmatic figure. You think, cool, she's got some secrets, let's see where this goes. But then the layers start peeling back, and before you know it, you're emotionally invested in a way you didn't sign up for. It's like getting hit by Truckun and you didn't see it coming. For me, the most gut-wrenching part was realizing how much Tomoe wanted peace, not just for herself, but for Kenshin too. Her love for him feels so raw and unselfish, even when it's tangled up in trust and betrayal. See what I did there? And let's not forget the ultimate twist of the knife, her death. By the time Kenshin accidentally kills her, you're not just sad, you're devastated. It's the kind of emotional sucker punch that makes you want to curl up in a ball and rethink your life choices. And here's the thing, this isn't just me being dramatic, okay, maybe I am. It's a testament to how well written and well acted Tomoe is as a character. She forces you to confront uncomfortable truths about love, sacrifice, and the messy, often painful nature of being human. In other words, she's the kind of character that sticks with you after the film ends. One of the most thought-provoking aspects of Tomoe's story is how it grapples with guilt and redemption. Both Tomoe and Kenshin are haunted by their pasts, and their relationship becomes a kind of mutual therapy, albeit the tragic kind that ends in tears and blood. Tomoe's guilt over betraying Kenshin is deep, but it's her ability to forgive him and herself that gives her story its emotional weight. On the flip side, Kenshin's quest for redemption becomes the driving force of his entire arc. Tomoe's death is the catalyst that pushes him to change, but it's also a constant reminder of the cost of his actions. It's like a psychological seesaw. Every step forward is balanced by the weight of what he left behind. And let me tell you, watching that dynamic play out hits harder than a gym session after skipping leg day.
このままずっと人を殺め続けるおつもりですか?
One thing that really sticks out about Tomoe is her quiet strength. She's not a flashy character, and she doesn't have the dramatic monologues or over-the-top emotions you might expect from someone with her backstory. Instead, her strength comes from her ability to endure, to carry her grief and pain without letting it consume her. This speaks volumes about her resilience. Tomoe is a classic example of someone who's been through hell but refuses to let it define her. Even as she's consumed by the need for revenge, she maintains a level of composure that's almost unsettling. It's a reminder that strength doesn't always look like charging into battle. Sometimes it looks like quietly carrying your burdens and doing what needs to be done. Tomoe's story also forces us to confront some serious ethical dilemmas. Was she right to seek revenge against Kenshin? Was her decision to protect him in the end a betrayal of her fiance's memory? These questions don't have easy answers, and that's what makes her story so compelling. On one hand, you can argue that her actions were justified. Kenshin killed her fiance after all. But on the other hand, her decision to forgive him and even love him adds a layer of complexity that makes you question what justice really looks like. It's the kind of moral ambiguity that keeps you up at night, wondering if you'd have the courage to make the same choices she did. Tomoe's story is more than just a tragic romance. It's a meditation on love, loss, and the human capacity for change. Her impact on Kenshin is undeniable, but her impact on us, the audience, is just as profound. She forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our own capacity for forgiveness, empathy, and resilience. Personally, I walked away from this feeling like I'd been emotionally mugged, but I also felt a weird sense of catharsis, like I'd just been through a therapy session I didn't know I needed. Tomoe's story doesn't just break your heart, it helps you understand it. Alright dudes and dudettes, let's wrap this up with a question that might just keep you awake tonight. Here it is. Can we forgive ourselves for the things we've done, like Tomoe forgave Kenshin? Yeah, it's heavy, but after watching Rurouni Kenshin the beginning and marinating in the emotional fallout of Tomoe's story, I couldn't stop wondering, what does it take to truly let go of the guilt, the anger, and the regret that come with being human? And more importantly, can anyone actually do it? Let's break it down. First off, let's talk about Tomoe. If anyone had the moral high ground to hold a grudge, it was her. Kenshin killed her fiancé. That's not exactly the kind of thing you bounce back from. But what makes Tomoe so extraordinary isn't just her capacity to forgive Kenshin, it's the way she does it. Her forgiveness isn't loud or preachy. It's quiet, almost unspoken. It's in her actions, staying by Kenshin's side, shielding him from harm, and ultimately sacrificing herself to save him. Think about that for a second. How many of us would have the guts or the heart to do the same? I'm over here struggling to forgive the guy who cut me off in traffic last week, and Tomoe's out here literally laying her life on the line for someone who destroyed hers. It's next level emotional maturity, and honestly, it makes me feel like a toddler in the grand scheme of emotional intelligence. Now, let's flip the script. Forgiving someone else is one thing, but forgiving yourself? That's a whole nother beast. And if anyone knows that struggle, it's Kenshin. The dude is a walking guilt complex. Tomoe forgave him, sure, but you can tell he never fully forgave himself. Even after he swears off killing and dedicates his life to protecting others, there's this lingering sense of self-loathing that follows him like a shadow. And honestly, can you blame him? Imagine knowing your actions, intentional or not, led to the death of someone you loved. That's not the kind of thing you just shake off. Kenshin's struggle with self-forgiveness is a big reason why his story resonates so deeply. It's raw, it's real, and it's painfully relatable. Because let's be honest, who among us hasn't beaten ourselves up over something we did? Granted, it's probably not on the same scale as, accidentally killing someone, but the principle is the same. Here's where things get personal. Watching Tomoe and Kenshin wrestle with forgiveness forces you to ask yourself, what would I do in their shoes? Could I forgive someone who took everything from me? Could I forgive myself for doing something unforgivable? It's the kind of question that makes you stare at your ceiling at 2 a.m. wondering if you're actually a good person or just pretending to be one. For me, the answer changes depending on the day and my caffeine levels. Some days I think, yeah, I'd totally be the bigger person, forgiveness is the way to go, but other days, forget it. I'm holding that grudge like a championship trophy. And that's the thing about forgiveness. It's not a one-size-fits-all deal. It's messy, it's complicated, and sometimes it feels downright impossible. So why does any of this matter? Because stories like Tomoe's reminds us that forgiveness, whether it's forgiving others or forgiving ourselves, isn't about erasing the past. It's about making peace with it. Tomoe doesn't forget what Kenshin did. She doesn't pretend it didn't happen. Instead, she chooses to see the humanity in him, to believe that he's more than his mistakes. And in doing so, she helps him start the long, painful process of forgiving himself. It's a lesson that hits hard because it's so universal. We've all messed up, we've all hurt people, intentionally or not, and we've all struggled with the question of whether or not we're worthy of forgiveness. Watching Tomoe and Kenshin navigate that terrain is like holding up a mirror to our own lives, and it's both humbling and comforting to realize that even fictional characters don't have it all figured out.
あなたもその犠牲者ではないのですか?
Alright, I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers here. If anything, I'm probably the last guy you should turn to for life advice. But if there's one thing I've learned from Tomoe's story, it's this. Forgiveness isn't about being perfect. It's about being human. It's about recognizing that we're all flawed, that we all make mistakes, and that we all have the capacity to grow and change. And if Tomoe can forgive Kenshin, and if Kenshin can at least try to forgive himself, maybe there's hope for the rest of us. So here's the challenge, bros. The next time you're beating yourself up over something, ask yourself what Tomoe would do. Would she hold on to the pain, or would she find a way to let it go? I can't promise it'll be easy, in fact it'll probably suck, but if her story teaches us anything, it's that forgiveness is worth the struggle. Listen, I came into this thinking I'd write some witty analysis and move on with my day. Instead, I ended up having an existential crisis over a fictional character. Tomoe isn't just a side character, she's the emotional backbone of the Rurouni Kenshin story and the girl who tamed the Battousai. She's the reason we feel anything when Kenshin takes his vow never to kill again. So yeah, Yukishiro Tomoe is a masterpiece of a character, and if you disagree, I'll fight you. With words, obviously. So what's the takeaway here? Well, first off, don't watch this movie if you're not ready to get emotionally wrecked. Second, Yukishiro Tomoe is a masterclass in how to write a character who's both deeply human and profoundly impactful. Her story is a reminder that the best stories aren't the ones that make you feel good, they're the ones that make you feel, period. In the end, Tomoe's story isn't just about love, loss, or redemption. It's about what it means to be human. It's about the scars we carry, the mistakes we make, and the choices we have to live with. And it's a reminder that no matter how broken we feel, we're all capable of healing. So the next time you're watching Rurouni Kenshin the beginning and bawling your eyes out over Tomoe's sacrifice, just remember, it's not about the pain, it's about what you do with it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to try and forgive myself for eating an entire bag of shrimp chips during the writing of this video essay. Peace out, bros. Thanks everyone for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. Also be sure to check out my other videos for more insight on other dramas and shows. Your support means a lot to me and it helps me grow this channel. If you have any thoughts, questions, or suggestions for future videos, please drop them in the comments down below. Again, thank you for watching this video and I'll see you next time.